I feel who we're not quite sure if they're being haters or if they're really having sound advice, we have Oga Obinna. Now, at a certain event, he was being interviewed by Silver Kido, and he was asked, we've seen Mulamwa doing the home project where he's building a really huge house in the rural area and it's almost complete. What do you think about that, especially given that you have already done the same? Remember a few years ago, Oga Obinna had done the whole thing where he built a house for his family and then he built his own house still in the rural area. And when asked that question, he said he doesn't think it's a sound investment. He actually thinks it's a very bad investment for you who is working and living in the city to build a whole house in the rural area just because, you know. And he goes on to say that most of the times it's just pressure from your family members, from your relatives, to give your parents bragging rights. It really does not make sense. He even said that the house he built there, he invested close to 10 million Kenya shillings in building that house, but he rarely visits it. If he goes to Western, he stays in Kisumu in a hotel. If he goes there, it's just to check if the gardening is being done, if the fences are okay, if the grass is overgrown. He stays there maybe 2 nights and then comes back to the city because this is where, you know, he is, and this is where things matter. And I think it's actually sound because most of us grew up being told the first thing you do with your salary is build a home. Nunua shamba, jenga nyumba. Nunua shamba, jenga nyumba. And then, you know, it really doesn't make sense if your work is based in Nairobi. Your life is in Nairobi. Your partner is also working.
What are you talking about? You could be in diaspora and you're still being told to build a house.
But you're building a house
in Ushago to do what?
To do what? Even if it's a retirement home, are you, as you're old and frail, going to retire in a mansion?
Hey,
it really doesn't make sense. And we've seen
with all those stairs, how are you going to climb?
Old people, old couples have to be forced to sell their rural home and come buy an apartment in Nairobi because it just makes sense to them. You're old, you and your husband are afraid, you can no longer climb the stairs.
Running to hospitals, not that there aren't hospitals in Gishagi.
It's not sustainable when you're old. It makes sense if you're going to live in that house. If you and your children, you're going to relocate them and go to Rongo and live there, all of you, and they go to rural schools and everything. But if you're just based in Nairobi, why are you doing that? It's just bragging rights. You know, holidays. Tuseme watoto kifunga shule, tunaenda huko 2 weeks, tunaparambulate, alafu tunarudi Nairobi kulipa rent. That does not make sense. That does not make sense. So he says, if you have extra money or if you have disposable income and you want to save and invest in, you know, a house, do it maybe in the outskirts of where you live, outskirts of Nairobi, outskirts of Kisumu City, you know, where you live, uko, environs. Don't be so inclined to just build a house in the rural area.
Yeah, I think especially with okay, another thing or another downside to that, you've built this house with spending a lot of your money, then you're not going to rent it because this is your family property. This is your ushago, like this is where your parents live. Who are you going to rent this house to? Yeah? It's very unfortunate that you can't rent out this house, which means it's not earning you any income. Additionally, if you end up building this very expensive house and you never go, what happens naturally? You know, this came and he doesn't have a place to stay. Let him stay at your house for a while and da-da-da-da. Next thing you know, you have built a house for your cousin twice removed and now he's fully living there with his family, and by the time you're actually wanting to come to stay in your house, you can't. Why? Someone is moved in there and it's officially their house. And it becomes so difficult to get rid of these people. It ends up becoming like a squatter situation where, yes, you've built a house with a lot of your money, but you never stay in it and you're still paying expenses for this house. Because unfortunately, these are the things that happen in Ushago. It is what it is, and it is the truth, yeah? Another additional reason why you probably shouldn't be trying to build a whole mansion in Gishagi is, to be entirely honest, you're not going to be there, and your children are probably not going to care about it. Your children, which children electively go, yes, I volunteer myself to go to Ushago for the holidays. It's a lie.
I don't live in the city.
No, everyone wants to stay here. When you try and convince your children, let's move to Ushago. Have you ever tried? It's impossible. Children are used to this, their lifestyles wherever they live, and they don't want to go there. However, it makes sense if you have other businesses in Ushago, and therefore you're spending half your time here, or half your time wherever you are, and half your time in Ushago. Why? Because then you have a place to rent, to stay, to rest your head, and you don't have to spend more money with, but if you have nothing to do in Ushago, why are you building a house there? That's a waste of money. That 10 million, imagine, angeongezea another 10 million, angepata apartment hapa Kileleswa. Up Lavington, angepata a nice apartment. And here he is, having spent all of his money in Ushago. Imagine that money could have bought him how many, a few nice small cars to start a taxi business with. That's like 500, 700. If you chapa that cash like that, you have a whole fleet. Imagine, of just taxis, chapaing lapsuku, doing work for you and giving you extra income. If you split that money nicely, you can buy a shamba and actually, I've seen this this very white man who builds very nice houses, A-frame houses, for about 3.5 million. Take that 3.5 million, build some nice houses somewhere here in outskirts of Nairobi, make it an Airbnb. Even Syokimau, all the people coming from the airport, they come and spend a few days there. You're making money. It doesn't make sense to just let money sleep like that. Hey, when did I become an investment banker? My point is, there are far many more uses to your money than building a house in Ushago, unless you really want to, or you have businesses that are being conducted in Ushago. The end.